It's a pivotal matchup in the ultra-competitive welterweight division. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master Damian Maia defends home turf against undefeated American Ryan LaFlare.
Ryan LaFlare, he's a real solid professional mixed martial arts fighter with a lot of potential. He's very good in the stand-up. He's very good on the ground. His wrestling is very good as well.
And a big takedown from LaFlare.
Damian Maia, on the other hand, is one of the premier jiu-jitsu artists to ever fight in mixed martial arts. For Ryan LaFlare, this will be the toughest fight, without a doubt. It'll be the biggest win of his career for sure. For Damian Maia, it will reestablish him after almost a year layoff as still one of the premier 170-pound fighters in the game.
March 21st, UFC Fight Night. Maia versus LaFlare.
Oh! Here we go!
Welcome to another edition of Bookie Beatdown, your one-stop shop for all the analysis, advice, and predictions you need to make money in the world of mixed martial arts gambling. I'm Paul Shaughnessy. Joining me as always, we have Cody Safdick, the one and only guy who, when hired by Fight Network, listed his favorite fighters as Charles Crazy Horse Bennett and Mark Hunt. We're not talking about Mark Hunt of these days. He was on like a 5-fight losing streak at that point in time.
Well, I threw Carlos Newton there as well as a grappler okay. I like, but you're right. I enjoyed
you wanted to touch all of your
the big personas.
Wanted to touch all of your bases. Let's get in the action here. We got Fight Night Maia versus LaFlare going down this weekend in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Obviously, in the main event, we have Damian Maia taking on Ryan LaFlare. Ryan LaFlare is a -160 favorite with the comeback on Maia +130. Who do you got?
This is obviously a close fight. The odds are dictating that it's a close fight. We talk about it all the time when there's unknowns. And the fact that Ryan LaFlare has been off for quite some time, a bit of an unknown. When he's training, normally he's at Belmore Kickboxing Academy as well as he spends time with the Black Zillions. Mm-hmm. By all accounts, from his time spent with the Black Zillions, apparently he is just a workhorse, completely thrashes people. But even before he got signed to the UFC, I remember a story. Someone was talking to him about why don't you fight as regularly? And he said, I am so banged up physically. I suffer so many injuries that I'm saving myself for the UFC. Now that he's been in the UFC, he's got some wins, albeit not the highest level of competition, whereas Damian Maia has fought all the best guys. So the fact that Ryan LaFlare is the favorite, a little bit iffy to me. This is a tough fight. It's hard to make money on a fight like this, but you got to lean towards a guy in Damian Maia who's got that experience.
All of those wins for LaFlare coming by decision as well in the UFC.
In 3-rounders.
And to touch on when you were talking about him being banged up all the time, obviously probably because he works so hard in the gym. Evan Boers from Black Zillions had told us before that he is like the hardest worker in the gym, just grinds every single day, which probably leads to the fact that he's only had 11 fights in a 7-year fight career. The guy's 31, not really prospect status when you're that old. We're probably around, sometimes we have late bloomers. We've seen it a lot recently, with Robbie Lawler and
Rafael dos Anjos.
Obviously Rafael dos Anjos as well. But yeah, this is obviously a period in Ryan LaFlare's life where this is the step up probably that he needs to reach that next level. I'm worried about laying 165 here. I actually thought when this fight was first announced that Maia was gonna be the favorite, but obviously all the money has been coming in on LaFlare. Maia, we're kind of almost unsure of where he's headed in his career at this point. He looked good in his fight against Yakovlev, but almost his inability to finish. He got mounted in that fight like 3 times, and he was getting it early with like 3 minutes left in the round. He wasn't able to do anything with it.
Yakovlev's a tough Russian.
He's a tough Russian, but it was, that fight I believe was in Brazil as well, and he just couldn't get it done. Obviously, his fight against Rory Mack was a great fight, really exciting, and against one of the division's elite. And a loss to Jake Shields him versus Jake Shields, that's a tough grinding affair, and neither one of those guys is going to give up too much. You're right, 100%. This really comes down to question marks around LaFlare. I don't know if I'm willing to put him over to this level of competition yet. I like Damian Maia for plus money, but I would not be shocked if at the end of the day I'm losing my money on one Damian Maia, but yeah, give me the Brazilian in Brazil for plus 130.
Well, we already talked about some of the question marks surrounding Ryan LaFlare, but Damian Maia is in the same boat, being in his later 30s now. where is your head at? If he fights Ryan LaFleur the way he fought Ricky Story, and that's a very famous finish for him, he's going to smoke him. But what we've seen is that maybe he has trouble against grapplers. Jake Shields is the highest echelon of grappler. Yeah. And then you have Rory McDonald, the exact same thing. And, I mean, hell, he looked great in the first round against Rory McDonald. So it depends on how is he going to face this style of grappler. We know Ryan LaFleur brings it, but he doesn't really bring it at the same pace as the other two guys. So, this, like I said, it's a big question mark to me. Yes, he's in Brazil, and a small tidbit of information I found interesting is prior to Damian Maia's fight against Alexander Yakovlev, they had offered the fight to Sean Pearson, a UFC welterweight who's 3-0, and he turned it down. He wasn't physically ready. He didn't really have the preparation time, and they decided to go with Yakovlev. And Ryan LaFleur is almost that same mold as that Sean Pearson. Dave, there's no question here that Damian Maia is the reason why it's a headlining fight. This is not a great headlining fight by no means, but the Brazilian fans are coming to see Damian Maia. There's cachet in Damian Maia. He's fought for a title. He has all that going. You would assume that they're not necessarily setting up to get smoked in his home country. No. If he can handle Ryan LaFleur the way he's proven to handle other type of wrestlers, then he'll be fine. But as I said, this is a very close fight. The money being favored on LaFleur, that makes you want to go Maia. Maia's a little older. LaFleur's a work hog. So much going on there that it's more of a pass fight to me, but it'll be an interesting one either way.
We stay in the welterweight division where we have Eric Silva taking on Josh Koscheck. Eric Silva's a minus 450 favorite with the comeback on Koscheck plus 330. Koscheck obviously only a few weeks off of his very, very bad performance.
You want to talk about question marks? Here is one of them.
Against one Jake Ellenberger, and I guess the line is reflecting that. A lot of times we see guys come in on short notice, and it's like, well, it's because he blasted the other guy, didn't really get hurt. You know, we saw Koscheck, touching his eye and figuring out what was going on.
Kept looking at the clock.
Some of the strikes that Ellenberger was landing on him. He looked just all out of sorts after a long layoff. It kind of makes sense. And then now he's going in against somebody who's been, the epitome of question marks. What guy is going to show up? Anytime Eric Silva ever gets that step up in competition, he always loses. This is one of those situations, though, that, it may be Josh Koscheck. This is not the Josh Koscheck of old. Maybe he can get it all together over the last 3 weeks, be like, okay, what did I do wrong against Ellenberger? But even if Silva wins this fight, this is not the type of thing that he could really hang his hat on and be like, well, I've got a great scalp. It's just like, this is Josh Koscheck, maybe the last fight of his career, probably if he loses. But minus 450, maybe a little bit high, but I think Eric Silva gets it done here. What's your take here?
For 450, count me out. I want nothing to do with that. One, because we've seen Eric Silva, he's very wild, and he likes to throw spinning attacks. He likes to, kind of push his opponent, and that's just recipe for the takedown. Josh Koscheck is Jake Ellenberger. He wanted that takedown. He didn't want to strike with him. He struck with him in the early beginning. The second he got hit, you could tell he wanted that blast double. And I mean, he got it the first time, but Jake Ellenberger, a very strong wrestler himself, was able to get back up. Josh Koscheck against Eric Silva, you have to assume his game plan didn't change. In 2 weeks, he hasn't decided, oh man, remember how hard I got hit in the face? Yeah, I want to do that again. No, he wants that same game plan, the blast double. We see with Mark Munoz, you get thrashed and you jump back on the horse right away. But in Mark Munoz's case against Luke Barnett, he's going to have a full 8-week camp to train. Josh Koscheck is going to have very little time to train. So you have to assume the game plan is not going to change.
But maybe his mental state will change a little bit because we saw in his walk in there, he just looks nervous. He looks out of sorts. Like, this is not the confident Josh Koscheck that we had come to grow and to know and love in the past. This was a totally different guy, a guy who's like, oh crap, what did I just get myself into?
But he's coming out.
Oh my God, I'm not ready for this.
He's coming out to the ring thinking to himself, geez, I got really brutally knocked out against Tyron Woodley. And before that, I really got brutally knocked out by Robbie Lawler. And this fight against Jake Ellenberger, there's a high probability, not a high probability, but there's certainly a chance that I'm going to get knocked out. With Eric Silva, it's not so much I'm going to get knocked out as much as I might get kicked in the body, or he might get a rear naked choke. He's not a one-punch knockout power kind of guy. This is the last fight on his UFC deal. Coming into his last fight, maybe he just wants to get it over with. Get it over with. I'm no longer with the UFC. I can make more money fighting worse guys in a promotion like Bellator.
I don't even think that. I think, leading up to the fight against Ellenberger, he said, I want to finish all of the fights on my contract. The very next day in an interview, he was saying, I want to start a fighters union. Which leads me to believe he's already got one foot out the door at this point. But, man of his word, and he's been around the company for so long, He goes, all right, I'll take this last fight, but let's get it out of the way. I don't want to be thinking about it for a long time. I've got a lot of other businesses on the go, so this fight opens up against Eric Silva. All right, put me in, Uncle Dana. Off we go to the lightweight division where we've got Leonardo Santos taking on Tony Martin. Leonardo Santos is a slight favorite at minus 125 with the comeback on Tony Martin, minus 105. Pretty much a straight pick 'em with Leo Santos, the slight favorite here. Who do you got?
I was hoping that it would be wider odds because I thought Tony Martin would be a bigger underdog, and I was kind of leaning towards Tony Martin. If you look at his UFC career, he's had trouble with grapplers in the past, albeit the best grapplers. And in Leonardo Santos, a very, very good grappler. But now at 35 years old, I believe he's slowing down. He did not look good against Efren Escudero despite getting the win. Efren took that fight on about a week's notice and gassed out.
Should have lost to Park, except for
Denard Park, he had a point deduction. Yeah. So it's like he's in a favorable situation where he's got some big name guys on his resume, and Escudero looking great his last time out. That even gives him more value. But Tony Martin is a guy that 25 years old, he's still very young. Now that he's training at American Top Team, you can really see that he's just getting better and he's getting better and he's getting better. His last fight out against a Brazilian in Brazil easily submits Fabricio Camões, and I expect him not to necessarily submit the former ADCC champion, the World Grappling Champion in Santos. I don't necessarily think that he finishes him, but I think it's a good possibility that he can beat him for the 3 rounds. I'm going Tony Martin.
All right, coming up, we'll break down the rest of the main card of UFC Fight Night. Maia versus LaFleur when Bookie Beatdown returns. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Chauncey and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, off we go to the women's bantamweight division where we've got Amanda Nunes taking on Shayna Baszler. Amanda Nunes is a minus 400 favorite with the comeback on Baszler plus 300. Me and you were talking about this fight a little bit earlier on today, and I know you were just like, minus 400, are you crazy? I actually don't think it's actually that bad. Why? Amanda Nunes, if nothing else, she comes out firing.
Yeah.
Firing. And Shayna Baszler hasn't been dealing very well with aggressive fighters recently. Obviously, Beche Correa finished her in the first round. And before that, on the Tough House, Pena. Once Pena really came out firing, what was it, the second round, I believe. She left Baszler, the big favorite on that show, in the dust, essentially. So Amanda Nunes, kind of a live by the sword, die by the sword. Obviously, against Zingano, because Zingano's so tough, wasn't able to finish her in that first round. I think she kind of gassed herself reaching for that finish. But first round wins over Durandami and Sheila Gaff lead me to believe that Amanda Nunes is going to get it done again. And maybe very, very early sending one Shayna Baszler and one of the 4 horsewomen into retirement.
Oh no, I don't want to think about that. Shayna Baszler's been around forever, so I have a high amount of respect for her. Yeah. My only knack with Nunes, I don't by no means think she's going to lose this fight, but for minus 400, then you got to start looking at what are the other possibilities. And Amanda Nunes she fades a little bit late. The Kaz Zingano fight, she has Kaz Zingano. She's up 2 rounds, but I mean maybe not up 2 rounds, but it's a competitive 2 rounds. She certainly wins the first round. But in the third, she's just completely gassed out. And then you mentioned her other wins, Durandami and Sheila Gaff. Not exactly ground specialists, so you can exploit them in that regard.
You got them on the ground and finish them up with elbows.
Shayna Baszler's ability to shoot a solid takedown is diminished as she's gotten older in age. I just don't think she really has that speed. She was more of a catch wrestler to begin with, trained by Josh Barnett originally. I just don't know that she has the ability to drag the fight to the ground. But for minus 400, she has chances to win this fight. And as you mentioned, her fight on Juliana Pena. Juliana Pena is a highly, she's a highly touted prospect. She's good. She won the show. Shayna Baszler owned her in that first round. Unfortunately, you're in this Tough House, you don't really have a game plan together, it didn't really work out for her. But in a fight against Amanda Nunes, is it possible that Shayna Baszler takes her down? Yes. Is it possible that Shayna Baszler can control her, fatigue her, maybe exploit her late? Yes. And we know with Shayna Baszler training with Ronda Rousey, what better training partner could you possibly want? This is a striker versus a grappler. I might want to lean towards a grappler, but you're right. Shayna Baszler at 34 years old, I think she's seen better days. I think she's kind of winding down her own respective career. And she'd be a great coach, and she'd be a great mentor. She'd be a great training partner.
Yep.
Maybe not the upper echelon kind of fighter.
Yeah, I think Amanda Nunes will get it done and early in this fight.
I don't know about early, but
I think so. That's if she doesn't finish her early, then maybe Baszler can hold on and sneak out a decision because, Nunes will gas, but she comes out guns a-blazing in all of her last 3 fights, and I don't think that that's going to change in front of a heated literally and metaphorically. It's probably going to be warm in the arena in Brazil there. All right, off we go to the lightweight division where we've got Gilbert Burns taking on Alex Oliveira. Gilbert Burns minus 510 favor with the comeback on Oliveira plus 370. Burns was supposed to have kind of his step-up fight in this.
I feel bad for Burns.
And Josh Thompson, that's a great scalp. That's a great name.
Oh, yeah.
Very good fight for him in friendly confines in Brazil here. And obviously, Josh Punk Thompson has to pull out. Alex Oliveira, very, very unknown fighter coming into this fight. So unknown that the UFC has, they have these little sheets that they send us. And they have him listed as 8-7.
Yeah, on the website, on their UFC.com, he's 8-7.
Yeah, you go on Tapology, he's 11-1. So they probably have another Alex Oliveira. So they're not even too sure which guy's going to be jumping off the plane here or off the bus, I suppose, because it's Brazil. Either way, obviously, Gilbert Burns is going to get this done. If you want DraftKings, Kountermove, this guy's got to be on your team. This is a fight basically all right, well, we need to get Gilbert a fight. We have, anybody who wants to take this on short notice. Okay, this Alex Oliveira guy wants to step up.
Oh, some local Brazilian guy who wouldn't be in the UFC otherwise.
Durinho's going to smoke this guy. I don't see any ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do you have a case for one Alex Oliveira here?
No, Gilbert Burns is, I believe he's currently listed at minus 510, and people need to jump on this like a grenade because it'll be minus 8 or 9 by the time fight time rolls around. Gilbert Burns is the Blackzilians' grappling coach. He's a no-gi grappling coach. He's a no-gi submission world champion. He's the man. He should absolutely smoke through Alex Oliveira, who I don't think he's ever made 155 pounds. From everything I've seen, he fights at 170. He fought at catchweights of 165. He fought at catchweights of 163. Not only did UFC.com not have a single clue who the hell the guy was, but even Tapology, the website that we like to get most of our information, Tapology had him as having a draw that never even happened. They don't even know his record. Sherdog's got him out as 11-1. Tapology's got him out as 11-1-1 with no contest, right? And then you've got UFC.com's got him at 8-7. All I know is that
he's probably fought in a lot of Brazilian smokers, is what that basically tells us about this guy.
And if any of that was bad, is that all of his wins seem to be coming by way of knockout, which means he's a striker and he's going up against a great grappling coach. Gilbert Burns is not only going to smoke him out of the water, he should finish him in the first round. The only way he doesn't finish him in the first round is if he tells himself, listen, Gilbert, you're fighting such a bad guy at this point. Maybe you want to work out your striking.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't work out your striking against the upper echelon. Maybe play with him a little bit, and then maybe he finishes in the second round. But certainly, he is going to finish him. And he needs to make a statement. Because if you're Gilbert Burns, and they tell you, hey, Gil, you're going to be the co-main event. You're going to fight Josh Thompson in your co-main event. Josh Thompson pulls out. They're like, okay, you're not the co-main event anymore. And you're not the third fight. And you're not the fourth fight. But you can curtain jerk the main event, bud. It's like, or the main card. It's like, oh, come on. Man,
no, not
Shane
even.
and Baszler higher than me.
I don't even think he's curtain jerking it.
Maybe prelims,
no.
you know? And
tough
that,
spot for sure.
If I'm the Blackzilians and I'm with him, it's like, you know what? That's a little disrespectful. When have you ever seen a guy in the co-main event or the main event lose his dance partner and then get bumped all the way down? That is a testament of Josh Thompson was the only reason you're there. And he needs to make a statement. He needs to go in there. He needs to get the first round knockout, the first round submission. But he needs to let everybody know, hey, this short notice replacement, Alex Oliveira, not on my level.
Hey, this may not all be Gilbert Burns' fault. Maybe they just don't think that Alex Cowboy Oliveira is ready for co-main event status. Maybe. Even though Patrick Cummins was of a pay-per-view. So neither here nor there. Anyway, let's move on to the featherweight division where we've got Andre Touchy-Fili taking on Godofredo Pepey. We've got Andre Touchy-Fili is minus 280 favorite with the comeback on Pepey plus 220. Anybody who's listened to this before knows that I don't really like Pepey. I have went on record in other fights, and it came to bite me in the ass.
2-fight win streak.
That he was the worst fighter in the UFC or the worst fighter in the featherweight division. I'm not willing to get bit this time on this. I don't like the price of Andre Fili because I don't think Andre Fili at minus 280 is a fair price. He hasn't really done anything in the UFC to lead us to believe that he has reached a next level. You know, all of his fights have been close, and except for obviously his first fight against Jeremy Larson. But even in that fight, he was kind of getting beaten up a little bit early on in that fight. And obviously Max Holloway completely completely devastated him. Minus 280, too
Listen,
steep
you're
for
not-
my
you're
blood.
not on
I'm
Fili,
passing.
I'm
I'm
on
passing
Fili.
on this fight because me and Pepey just have bad luck together, so I can't really do anything on this fight. What about you?
Yeah, fair, but I'm actually going to go Andre Fili. Fighting out of Team Alpha Male, he's got great training partners, but it's the fact that he's got that grind, he's got that wrestling ability, and he's 6 foot tall for 145 pounds. So not only does he have that wrestling base and that pedigree working with great guys, but he's really able to use range, and if he can figure that out, young kid still, 24 years old, if he can really figure out that range, that wrestling, mix it all together, he's a threat in this division. Godofredo Pepey, we've talked about it, and we're not really high up on him. He's chinny, he's suspect, he's got a couple big wins, but quite frankly, Fili gets the job done. Minus 280, count me in.
Cody likes Fili. I'm going to pass on that fight. Don't go anywhere. More Bookie Beatdown still to come. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you. All right, we're just about out of time, but before we go, we got to give you our picks of the week for the main card of UFC Fight Night Maia versus LaFleur. So why don't you get started, Cody?
Well, Gilbert Burns is obviously the pick. Unfortunately, by the time fight time rolls around, he could be as much as an 8 or 9 to 1 favorite. So giving you that advice really does you no good. So we'll give you somebody with some better value, and that's Andre Fili. As I mentioned, he's in his last fight. He's been to Brazil. He's fought in Brazil. He's dealt with that pressure. He's not a UFC newcomer anymore. He's faced, in Max Holloway, at least one of the division's best guys. He's really starting to come into his own. Good gym, good camp behind him. I think there's multiple ways for Andre Fili to finish this fight, and for that reason, I'm going to take him.
And I'm going to go with Amanda Nunes, minus 400. I know it's a little bit steep. One thing I may look into, they haven't released them at the time that we filmed this here, is maybe some of the props. I really do think Amanda Nunes has a good chance of finishing this fight early.
Count me out of that.
Baszler has got herself into trouble of late, and I think she's kind of on the downslide in her career. Amanda Nunes comes in so aggressive in all of her fights that we see in the UFC, so it would be definitely something to look at based on what the price is and if it's right. If you want to see Cody and I break down the rest of Fight Night Maia versus LaFleur, you can do so at the Fight Network's YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Fight Network. We'll break down, obviously, the rest of the card. We'll give you our DraftKings and Kountermove picks and another fresh set of picks for the whole card and
bonus,
a parlay of the week. So you definitely want to get on that. But that's all the time that we have for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. So for Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck. Welcome back to Bookie Beatdown Bonus Edition.
Hello.
Me and Cody here.
No more commercial breaks.
No more commercial breaks, just straight picks, straight DraftKings Kountermove, all the good stuff, and none of the BS in between. So let's get right back into the action here. First off, we got Francisco Trinaldo taking on Akbar Arreola. Francisco Trinaldo is a minus 205 favorite with the comeback on Arreola, plus 165. Who do you got?
Well, I actually do like Francisco Trinaldo, but if you have a quick look at some of his wins in the UFC, CJ Keith, no longer in the UFC. Mike Rio, no longer in the UFC. Jesse Ronson, by the way, very talented kid, but no longer in the UFC.
Leandro Silva on this card.
Yeah, short notice replacement who's 0-1 in the UFC.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is Francisco Trinaldo hasn't fought the best guy. At least he hasn't beaten the best guys. He came up short against guys like Michael Chiesa, was good. All that aside, though, Akbar Arreola is freaking terrible, man. Terrible. And I say that with all due respect because he beat my boy Yves Edwards. But Yves Edwards has been around for so long, the UFC owed him one. They owed him a couple. So they were giving Akbar Arreola to him as a gift.
They were basically saying
here's the
to
worst
Yves,
guy we could freaking find, man.
Yves, we really like you a lot. You've done a lot of good things for us.
Yeah.
You know, he had to deal with that whole Jeremy Stevens incident way back when, and, you know, he was apparently a really good guy about it, and so on and so forth. And there's like, if you can't beat him, I'm sorry, it's over.
Listen, Yves, you're talking about retirement, but I'll tell you what. We'll give you the bottom of the barrel. Hey, this guy lost to Juan Manuel Puig, who's the worst guy we've ever seen. So I think it was a setup fight for Yves Edwards. Unfortunately, Yves is very old now, and he's just not the same guy he was. And, you know, his chin let him out. And if you watch that fight, when the armbar gets applied to him, he's tapping already. He wants out at that point. It was not a good look for him. That's fine. As a result, Akbar Arreola, he gets another fight. Okay, what can we do with this guy? Let's send him to Brazil to get smoked. And that's essentially what this is. My only small issue with this, because the odds are great. Minus 155 Trinaldo.
Is that Trinaldo gasses like crazy?
Yeah, and Akbar Therioli only has one skill. He's a rugged Mexican who stays in the game.
How old is Trinaldo?
36 years old.
Okay.
And
I was gonna say whatever he is, I'm not buying it. He's older because he looks like a really old man.
He does look older.
36 actually, it makes sense.
He trains out of Evolução Thai in Brazil, and there's an affiliate in Toronto, Evolução Thai, Canada. And the one in Brazil, I mean, the Canadians, they post a lot about what's going on in the Brazil. I mean, they're a very tight-knit little group there. But Godofredo Pepey, also from that gym, so he's got a couple training partners. They seem to be training hard. From photos that have surfaced online, he looks to be in good shape.
He's always in good shape.
Exactly.
He's like mini T-Bow is what he is.
Remember when he fought T-Bow? It was like, I remember telling you about Gleison T-Bow is the biggest lightweight. And when he stood against Trinaldo, it was like, this Trinaldo guy says
two fire hydrants going at it.
Exactly. And because of that reason, he's going to gas. But against Akbar Theriola, I would have to assume that once he does gas, he's going to be clear up 2 rounds. Akbar Theriola has fought in Brazil twice already. Came up short both times. I saw him fight on a Bopi, which is the special like SWAT team in Brazil. I watched him fight on a Bopi fundraiser card like years back. Uriah Faber was actually commentating. He fought Janis Torres, and he got smoked. He tried out for the Ultimate Fighter, didn't even get into the house. This is a guy who, I don't want to call him a career loser because he's got a decent amount of wins and a lot of submissions, but he's not going to submit the BJJ black belt and Francisco Trinaldo. He's not going to take him down. He is very sloppy with his striking exchanges. If Trinaldo does gas, then he wins 29-28, so count me in for Francisco Trinaldo.
Yeah, I like Trinaldo as well. All right, off we go. We got Kevin Souza taking on Katsunori Kikuno. Kevin Souza is a minus 215 favorite with the comeback on Kikuno, plus 170. Who's your pick?
This one's weird to me because I get that Kikuno, he's really not even that old. I could see why people are fanning him. He's kind of got that weird karate style, but he got smoked against Tony Ferguson. No doubt about it. He got smoked.
Ferguson is really good.
He's the man.
He's
Ferguson
like legit could be a top 5 guy in this division.
He's certainly, in my opinion, a top 10 guy. So
I mean, like in the future, if he continues to build like he is right now, he's on the right path.
And to mix all that in together is that you get smoked against this guy, and then you decide 55 is not for me. So he drops down to 145, beats Sam Cecilia, who's not bad by no means. So I'm kind of surprised that he's a plus 175 underdog. So now I look at his opponent. Okay, well, what does Kevin Souza have that maybe I'm overlooking? And to be quite honest, I mean, his win over Markadiva, that's not really lighting the world on fire. He's very big for the weight class.
He was a massive favorite against a diva in that fight, I believe, as well. So
yeah, but Markadiva's, I believe, a Filipino fighter. Not a whole lot of. I mean, I believe he had 5 fights.
There was a lot of hype. There's a lot of hype.
30 fights. He's fought the best guys. And if Kevin Souza wants to stand with him, well, that's hot fire because Kikuno's not necessarily a power puncher, but the way he moves, and I recommend you go watch tape on this guy. Is a very traditional karate style, which allows him to move out of the way. He throws a good right hand. That all could spell recipe for disaster. Now, he kind of one-dimensional. I know he's submitted Sam Cecilia, but he's kind of one-dimensional. A little too much for me to invest and put money on him. But that being said, the minus 220 status on Souza, I don't like that at all. So this is more of a pass for me.
Yeah, it's actually kind of a pass for me as well. This is the type of fight that I think very well could be fight of the night. So maybe just
could be a good one.
Sit back, grab a cold one, and enjoy the show. But I think it's going to be a really fun fight. But I could see it really going either way. And it's not even like I want to, take the dog in this situation because. Kikuno against Ferguson, another good stand-up fighter,
and a big long
really
guy,
struggled.
Souza is.
Yeah, similar type of matchup. I think Ferguson's much better than Souza, but it kind of worries me. All right, off we go. We have Leandro Silva taking on Drew Dober. Leandro Silva is a minus 165 favorite with the comeback on Dober, plus 135. I'm going to go with the Brazilian in Brazil here. I've never been impressed by Drew Dober. And his win against Jamie Varner.
Jamie Varner beat himself.
Jamie Varner went into that fight with the mentality of, if I lose this fight, I am retiring. That is never a good time to go into a fight. And
Cyril Diabate did the same thing.
Exactly.
You saw the results.
So Leandro Silva, don't get me wrong, he has not been, a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. He has a submission win over Charlie Brenneman, which, let's be honest, is Charlie Brenneman. Charlie Brenneman just isn't cut out for this level of competition anymore, and a loss to Trinaldo in his UFC debut. Minus 165. I don't think it's a bad price. This is a pretty close fight all around. I could see Dober winning because we're dealing with guys around the same level here, but there's been a few passes, a few kickback, and just enjoy the show with a cold one kind of fights on this. So give me the Brazilian in Brazil here.
I'm going to avoid the Brazilian here.
No?
Drew Dober, I agree. Maybe not the best guy we've seen, but as you may have noticed on the picture of Drew Dober that came up when you saw the matchup board, his jaw is as thick as they come, man. And he can take one hell of a punch. And that bodes well in the sense that even if he's losing, he can stay in the fight against a guy that tends to fade late. That goes well. But something that I liked about Drew Dober is that he lost his first 2 fights in the UFC. They kept him around. He got the win over Jamie Varner. Clearly, I think they wanted Varner to win that fight. That's why they gave him Dober. But nonetheless, now he can get more fights. Send him to Brazil, fine. He spent a large portion of this camp at Dwayne Bang Muay Thai's gym. And he had Danny Castillo and TJ Dillashaw as training partners. There's a lot of pictures of him online. He looks shredded. He looks in fantastic shape. And I just think getting that extra time in with Dwayne Ludwig, working with Danny Castillo, maybe helped him when he was wrestling a little bit, working with TJ Dillashaw, working all of that. I don't know how many changes we'll be able to expect to see from Drew Dober, but you could see enough to win this fight. This is a very risky fight because people are going to fan Drew Dober because they just don't like the guy. They don't really like him. And I believe he beat Chase Hackett, who is a highly touted pro spot in my books. Chase Hackett, I really like Chase Hackett. I believe he was 6-1, and Drew Dober smoked him, and that's how Drew Dober got into the UFC. So I get that he didn't look great in the UFC, but the potential is there. This kid could be okay, and okay might be good enough to beat someone like Leandro Silva. So it's a close enough fight that I don't want to keep telling you to pass all the time, but this is the type of card, people, that it's a free fight night card. There's tough matchups. Dogs are going to win. Mm-hmm. Don't feel a false sense of security in that, oh, I'm betting the Brazilian in Brazil, I'm going to get money back. If you're not certain on it, avoid it. Yeah. And I've done my research on these guys, and I'm not sure on it. Yeah. So it's more of an avoid it, or small action on the dog, or steer clear. Like you said already, could be a cool fight to sit back and have a beer. Maybe that's the road to go down.
There we go. All right, we stay in the lightweight division where we have Leonardo Mafra as a minus 155 favorite. The comeback on Cain Carrizosa plus 125. 2 guys with not the most fun UFC debuts. Leonardo Mafra lost a second-round submission to one Rick Story. Tough matchup on short notice. And you have Cain Carrizosa, who got completely decimated by Chris Wade by submission in the first round. This is one of again we're running down into this path many times, and these guys aren't really to be trusted. I don't think it was. If anything, I suppose Leonardo Mafra looked really good and aggressive, at least in the first round against Rick Story. So I have to give him the slight edge at minus 155. I think the price was probably set right on this one. But also, you have octagon jitters and all these other things. And, Cain Carrizosa just got steamrolled. He's got steamrolled. It's like one of those things you're just like, oh, my God. Oh, look at all these lights around. Oh, my God, this guy's coming across the cage like a freight train here. And he got obliterated. So I don't think we've seen the best out of Cain Carrizosa. If their previous fights is going to teach me anything, I'm going to have to lean towards one Leonardo Mafra at minus 155 here, though.
Cain Carrizosa is actually, in my opinion, is about to re-suffer octagon jitters, maybe worse. Imagine you're fighting in Las Vegas. It's your debut. Mm-hmm. The lights. But you're the first fight on the card, and there's nobody there. And it's very echoey, and there's not a whole lot of people cheering, and I got submitted by a guillotine choke a minute and a half in the first round. Oh, well, it happens. Now my second fight. Oh, my God, but jitters out of the way. No. Now the arena is full for the first fight. By the time your fight comes in,
everybody's angry at you.
And they're pissed off, man. And they're yelling, El Muertre! And they're telling you to go die. Yep. The octagon jitters are going to, holy crap, this is enemy territory. And I think for that reason, he may freeze up again. Yep. Leonardo Mafra, as you mentioned, fought Rick Story in his debut. And now we've got Cain Carrizosa who fought Chris Wade. Now, the big glaring difference here is one is infinitely better than the other. But the second glaring difference is one's a welterweight, one's a 155er. Yep. So we got Mafra who's now dropping down to 155. He seemed decent size for 170, so I like that he's carrying in that extra size. But now, How'd he lose against Rick Story? He got taken down and got submitted. Well, how did Carrizosa lose his fight? Well, he just got caught in a guillotine. They're not exactly both grapplers.
Mafra, if my memory serves me correctly, came in like uncomfortably underweight for that fight with.
It's like 167 or something.
It was like,
but it was
like maybe the cut took him too much, or maybe he was. He was already thinking about lightweight, and then had already gotten himself
well, it could
down
be on the
to
Ultimate
an area.
Fighter, so Brazil. So it's a possibility they want to drop down anyways. When they say, "Do you want to take Rick Story?" Hey, this is my chance to get in. I didn't win the Ultimate Fighter. Maybe they're not going to have me back anyways. I'll take this opportunity. If anything, I believe his octagon jitters are out of the way because now you're sitting at home and you see how good Rick Story is, and he's a weight class higher. And I mean, the guy's got a win over Johnny Hendricks. Like it's good for your confidence. And if Mafra's sitting at home, he's thinking, no big deal. If I'm King Carrizosa and I watch Chris Wade's next fight and he squeaks one out, it's like, oh man, I couldn't beat that guy, and this guy can't beat half the division.
Yeah.
That's bad for your confidence.
Yeah.
Now, Mafra's got the hometown advantage, he's got all that. But I think it's a striker versus striker matchup. And I'm not 100% sure with this King Carrizosa, but me and you actually watched him on Tachi Pala's fight, his fight before he got to the UFC. He knocked out Chris Quitaquit, who's not bad. But I believe 4-3, not a great record, and he knocked him out in like 30 seconds. So if you're the UFC, it's like, well, what's his highlight reel look like? Oh, he smashes people really fast. Okay, what gym's he out of? Bas Rutten's Elite MMA. Okay, Bas, take the kid. Okay, you know what? Let's do it as a favor for him. 6-1 coming in the UFC, too green. Unless you're a stud, unless you're Ray Borg, unless you're really
6-0.
spot on 6-0. It's just not enough. Now he's 6-1. Great. It's not enough experience. And kid, who'd you not? Remember there was a time you had to beat a UFC veteran to get to the UFC? Well, that's dead now. And this guy didn't take that road. He didn't take the Ultimate Fighter road. He just beat a 4-3 fighter on the regional scene. That got you into the UFC? I don't really know that he's ready. And if he was fighting another guy who similarly wasn't ready in America, maybe it's different. But the fact is, he's traveling to Brazil. He's fighting a guy that trains how to shoot to box.
And it's Mafra, a guy who, as we alluded to, was in his first round against Rick Story, was coming in very aggressively. He struggled against somebody who came in really aggressively in his first fight. So, I think we're both on one Mafra here. All right, off we go. We've got Christos Giagos taking on Jorge de Oliveira. Christos Giagos can be had at -215 with the comeback on Jorge de Oliveira +170. Who do you got?
Giagos had a tough outing in his debut, fighting Gilbert Burns, who, as we mentioned, as we alluded to, is a stud. He's a very good fighter. So I don't really take that much out of Giagos losing that. His fight prior to getting to the UFC was an RFA title fight against Dakota Cochran, who, say what you will about Dakota Cochran, decent fighter in his own regard. And he was losing that fight.
Knockout.
Yeah, I didn't think he was winning that fight until he got the knockout. But there's one thing you got to give him. He's got heart and he's got endurance, and he's kind of embraces that kind of grind. And I've been following him on social media leading up to the fight. He's in fantastic shape. He's already in Brazil. He's already relaxing beachside, getting ready for the fight. And it's not that I'm not big on his opponent, who's dropping down to 155. I believe he debuted at 170. It's that he's a striker against a guy who's more well-rounded. So I'm going to go with Giagos.
All right, and finally we've got the curtain jerker here, where we have Bentley Seiler taking on Freddie Serrano. Basically, this is probably a fight for who is the worst fighter in the UFC.
That's a little harsh, no?
It's a little bit harsh, but let me fill you in. We've got Bentley Seiler, got TKO'd by Jose Quinones in round one of Tough Latin America. Taking on Freddie Serrano, who lost to Alejandro Perez by unanimous decision. So I suppose on paper, advantage Serrano, because Alejandro Perez ended up beating Quinones in the final.
They both lost to the eventual finalists.
The finalists, yeah. And, Serrano at least went to decision here. Very, very strange that Bentley Seiler is actually a -195 favorite to come back on Serrano, +160. I suppose it's the fact that Freddie Serrano only has one professional fight in his career. Bentley Seiler, 5 fights in his mixed martial arts career. Obviously, we're not talking about the top level of competition here. Both fighters fighting at 125 for this fight. Bentley Seiler has been training recently at ATT, so maybe he comes in with a better game plan and beats Serrano here. But these guys, we've been talking about risky guys. These guys are like the epitome risky guys here. I don't mind Bentley Seiler, which we'll get into a little bit later, from a counter move perspective, just because he's so cheap at 4,300. It's almost like Kountermove made a mistake by putting him that cheap. He's the odds-on favorite, but he's a 4,300. He's the cheapest guy off the board. So I don't hate him there, but I will not be putting up any mortgages on one Bentley Seiler here. You have a hot take on either one of these guys?
Yeah, well, buyer beware. I'm 0 for 2 on these tough Latin American fights. I got that Nunes one versus Alejandro Perez wrong, and I believe I also got Rodolfo Rubio's fight wrong as well. But let's take a crack at this one. Freddie
Third
Serrano.
time's a charm.
Yeah, Freddie Serrano is actually an Olympian. He wrestled for Bolivia. Bolivia? Yeah, anyways, Cambodia, sorry. Anyways, he wrestled
definitely not Cambodia.
Yeah. I'm sorry. His opponent's
different
Bolivian.
continent, buddy.
Yeah, no, his opponent's Bolivian, Dr. Bolivia,
Okay.
and he actually went to med school. He's a smart guy. At 5-0 and being an ATT, that's going to help him. Freddie Serrano, as I mentioned, he's an Olympian. Colombia. I don't know why I had a brain fart on that. I believe he wrestled for Colombia, finished 7th, right? If you watch the Ultimate Fighter fight, because that's really all we can gauge out of these guys, is how do they look on the actual show. Freddie Serrano, his wrestling looked kind of on point. He's able to secure an early first-round takedown. He gets a decent ground and pound, and he wins that first round. Very important to note, he wins that first round. Now going into the second round, he appears to kind of gas a little bit. He doesn't shoot nearly as many takedowns. He doesn't get the takedowns, and he's a little short guy with not as much reach, so he loses the second round. Sudden death. Goes to a third round, and now he just doesn't have it anymore. Bentley, meanwhile, got finished in the first round, but he got dropped early in the fight. He got up. He got dropped the second time is how the fight finished, but his cardio never let up, and he's a striker by nature. Now, when you examine both fights, these guys are both flyweights that were fighting at bantamweight. So dropping down, who's that going to help more? Bentley. Because Bentley was fighting a fellow striker who was just bigger than him. Mm-hmm. He had more size. So you see a striker versus striker. Who's going to win? Well, the bigger guy. If they're both, relatively same skill, the bigger guy. And the bigger guy did win. Now Bentley's out. They call him Dr. Bolivia because he graduated from med school. He's a very, very smart guy. And now he's decided, you know what? I could be a doctor later on in life. I want to take this moment and pursue fighting. Goes to American Top Team. Already a smart guy. Now you've got his opponent in Freddie. It's like, okay, well, I was a wrestler a long time ago. And he's a self-admitted, well, I used to be a drug addict, and I made a lot of bad choices. And now I'm rehabbing my life, and I'm working with, at-risk youth. Well, have you left your home state? No. What have you really done to, change your game? Well, I'm an Olympian. Well, that's all you got. I'm sorry. And you need to advance. So is he going to take Bentley down early? Probably. Is he going to win the first round? Probably. But then he's going to get tired. And I see Bentley finishing him or not finishing him, but winning 2 and 3, similar to his run on the show. And for that reason, that's why he's the favorite. Once again, we hardly know much about these guys. No. Once again, I'm 0-2 and trying to figure out these tough Latin America houses.
Tough Latin America wasn't even the language that we could speak. So unless we were going to sit around for 13 hours reading subtitles.
And Fight Pass wasn't even giving it away for free. They were charging money for it. I tried to watch that season, and they were like $9.99. It's like, this is not for me. I'm not paying $9.99. But we made a joke about it that tough Latin America, the winner wouldn't get through the first round of a regular Ultimate Fighter. And now you've got 2 guys that couldn't get out of the first round of that same tough Latin America.
Yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt. These guys really aren't the best fighters in the UFC, but there's a reason why they're jerking a free fight night card in Brazil, which has been heavily criticized for its lack of star power. So that's the reason. There
we go. Off we go to our Kountermove and DraftKings breakdown. So obviously this isn't straight picks. This is based on performance, whether it's takedowns, reversals, mounts, or from striking perspective, you've got significant strikes and yada, yada, yada. The list goes on. And obviously you get bonuses as well if your fighter finishes early, and essentially that's what you're looking for. People that you think are going to finish or ice somebody in the first round. So I'm going to just get started with my Kountermove team that I threw together here. I've got Amanda Nunes at 5,500, a little bit pricey, but I like the fact that Amanda Nunes always comes out looking for that finish in all of her fights.
Fair.
And I think Baszler is somebody on the downfall in her career. Obviously, Baszler probably does know that she has to get back on track here. I just don't know if she's going to be able to deal with the onslaught, as she's failed to do so against Bethe Correia, and was and dealt very badly with Juliana Pena coming on really strong in that second round in the Tough House. Then I've got Eric Silva. I just think that Josh Koscheck already has one foot out the door at this point. He's had a very good career and all, but Eric Silva knows what's what. If he's not able to beat Josh Koscheck here, it's almost hard for the UFC to market him at this point. This is a guy who's always really aggressive, likes to finish guys, and as long as he's not getting finished in most of his fights, he's a quick and early finisher with lots of pressure.
He's never won
and
back-to-back fights in 3 years of fighting in the UFC. Just throwing it out there. Not necessarily saying he's not going to win this one.
It's because they
but
usually
you always
give him,
talk about win, loss, win,
They
loss,
usually give
win,
him that
loss.
step up, and I don't think Josh Koscheck is that step up because Josh Koscheck is not the same Josh Koscheck that he was before. And then we got Gilbert Burns, 5,300. This guy's got to be a lock on all of your teams. I think first-round submission is very much in the cards, or as we were talking about earlier, maybe he plays with his food a little bit, uses some striking, lands some striking points, and then finishes them up in the second round. Either way, Gilbert Burns has to be on your team in Kountermove and DraftKings for that matter. Then I'm running out of a little bit of money at this point.
Running low, are you?
I had one, Leandro Silva, 4,600. Just because, you know what, I like the fact that he's a Brazilian in Brazil. The fact that you were talking about Drew Dober working at Team Alpha Male does worry me a little bit. But Leandro Silva, definitely an action fighter who likes to attack his opponents, at least early, and may gas a little bit early. But there's an opportunity for an early finish there. And then Bentley Seiler, 4,300. Well, I only have 4,300 left, and he was the only guy that I actually could have got for that price. And oddly enough, he's a minus 195 favorite, and he's the cheapest guy off the board. So that sounds like a little bit of value to me. Who do you have on your Kountermove team?
Well, we might as well talk about the guys we have the same of. But Gilbert Burns, you absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
This is a situation like when Ronda Rousey fought Kat Zingano. A lot of people, we said the same thing. Put Ronda Rousey on the DraftKings team and Kountermove. People were saying, oh, well, everybody's going to pick her. No.
And they're like, she's really expensive. It's just like, you have to have her.
75% of the teams will have her. And those 75% of the teams are the 75% of the teams that are going to be contending for the money. Because the other 25, they're out. You need Gilbert Burns because when you look at this card, at Kountermove and DraftKings, very simple, and how you're looking at it. You need to find the people that are going to get the finish. And when I look at this card, when I run down every single fight on this card, oh my God, who's going to get the finish? Well, Gilbert Burns. I mean, he's going to get the finish, so I like him. Now, Eric Silva. I agree with you in putting on my Kountermove team. I did not agree with putting on my DraftKings team, but does he have a possibility that he might be able to finish Josh Koscheck? Yes, that possibility does exist. Maybe he finishes him. And if I can get the finish off Gilbert Burns and a finish off Eric Silva, that's great. Then I went with Andre Fili. I know you're more feeling him, but I strongly feel that he's going to finish Godofredo Pepe Castro. I
just can't say it because I'll jinx it. I just can't say it because I'll jinx it.
Then just avoid it altogether, my friend. Yeah. And that's great for me because not only will I beat you on DraftKings, I'll beat you on Kountermove because I took him for both. I like Andre Fili a lot. I think at 24 years old, he's one of those kids that's just going to keep getting better and better. And it might play out like the Jeremy Larson fight. Maybe, first round's competitive, second round starched. So, Andre Fili. Now, I'll agree with you on the Bentley Seiler pick because he was very cheap and I was running out of money as well, and the only picks that I could have that were cheaper than him or around that same price range were guys like Josh Koscheck and guys like Alex Oliveira, who, why would I pick against myself, right? Mm-hmm. I have the guys that they're fighting. I can't take them. So for that reason, I took him. And then my last pick, Christos Giagos, my little Greek friend, the Spartan. There's a lot of Spartans in the UFC now, in case you've noticed.
We got Vic Grujic, we got Elias Theodoro.
Giagos now, right? I mean, if you've got any bit of Greek in you, you're probably going to be
Was Anthony Christodoulou a Spartan as well?
God, I hope not, because he was like...
He's the worst Spartan.
He was like that fat Spartan you left back at home. You're just like, sorry, buddy, I need 300 people who got my back.
Oh, poor Christodoulou.
Yeah. So just to recap real quick, I got Gilbert Burns, Eric Silva, Andre Fili, Christos Giagos, and Bentley Seiler.
And on my DraftKings team, I've got Amanda Nunes, 11-7. I explained it before. I like her aggression early on, and I don't think Baszler's going to be able to handle it. Obviously, our main man, Gilbert Burns. What else do I have to say besides that? Then, obviously, it gets a little bit trickier, obviously, with DraftKings because prices are really high or really low, and a lot of the people who are low, you do not want on your team. So I went with Leonardo Santos. I like his... The experience that he has, and he has the possibility, if he gets Martin on the ground early, to get a sub with his high level jiu-jitsu, but obviously a risky fight there. And we got Godofredo Pepey. I can't believe he's on my team.
Yeah, your card's
One thing I do like about him.
Long gone.
One thing I like about him is his aggression.
Fair.
Aggression.
Yeah.
He went into that one fight against Noad Lahad.
He's not knocking.
I was really high on Noad Lahad.
I don't know why.
And Godofredo Pepey made me eat my words by going across the cage, flying knee, and then just completely iced him. He's very aggressive out of the gate, and that's the type of guy I'm looking at on my team. And then I have Katsunori Kikuno. I don't really know why. I think it was because it was really tough on DraftKings. It was tough to put together a good squad. I may have to rig this one back up again. But yeah, to sum it up, to be perfectly honest, I got Nunes, Burns, Santos, Pepey, and Kikuno.
Well, I will agree with you on the Gilbert Burns one, and that's about it. No, actually, I had Kikuno
I don't know why
as well.
you don't. I don't know why you've got you got so much love for Baszler in this fight. She's done nothing. She's done nothing to look good in a long time.
It's not that I have so much love for Baszler in this fight, but I'm looking at this on two ways, and both ways revolve around money. If I'm betting her straight money line, minus 400 on Nunes, too much. If I'm betting for the finish, I don't really think it's going to be a finish. And if I'm betting for DraftKings and Kountermove, the only way Nunes scores a lot is if she knocks her out. Because if it's a drag him out 3-round fight, she's not going to score that all that much. But for my DraftKings team, I went for Gilbert Burns. We already talked about this. He should get the finish. He should be a very high-scoring player. Andre Fili, because as you mentioned, Godofredo Pepey, he's so aggressive. He's going to come right into my right hand and knocked out. So I like Andre Fili for that as well. I went Leandro Mafra. We talked about Kane Carrizosa. I think he's going to suffer from octagon jitters a secondary time. If he gets too anxious and he comes out guns a-blazing, it's not going to bode well for him. He'll get tired. He might run into something as well. If he comes out shy and anxious and tries to pace himself, it's not going to work out for him because Mafra is very hyper-aggressive. And, being that it's in Brazil, you have to assume it kind of favors the Brazilian a little bit. I went Kikuno as well because he has that very strange striking style, but we've also seen how he finished Sam Cecilia, that he is apt on the ground.
Okay.
So he's got two ways to finish this fight. He could theoretically land something on Souza. He could theoretically submit Souza. And for 8,500, I need some cheaper guys. And I know you're going to hate this pick, but Josh Koscheck.
Ew.
I know. $7,500.
That's gross.
He was extremely cheap for $7,500.
Of course he was. He's gonna get iced in the first round.
Well, just like you said that Carlos Esparza was going to retain the title. I can't really believe what you're telling me, Paul. All jokes aside, though, things happen. All jokes aside, Josh Koscheck, he doesn't want to stand there and throw strikes, so he's going to want to get takedowns. And Eric Silva's good at getting back up. So if Josh Koscheck tells himself, I'm just going to take this guy down over and over, scoring points. Scores a couple, maybe he gets a favorable position, maybe goes for a submission, although highly unlikely, and maybe he works a little bit of ground and pound. But even if he loses the fight, and I'm not saying Josh Koscheck is going to win the fight, but even if he goes 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds, for a guy that's $7,500, he could score on points with the takedowns. He can score with points with some strikes. He can score some points with some advantageous positions. He's got ways to score points. So for $7,500, I needed a cheap guy, Josh Koscheck.
My concern would be that the only
Your
way...
DraftKings team is the worst one I've heard yet.
I don't know. You have Kikuno on your team.
Okay, we've got 2
You
of
have
the same
Josh
guys.
Koscheck.
Josh Koscheck. You know what? Heads up, me and you, this time. Let's play these teams heads up. We'll see what happens.
I would rather have Pepey on my team than Josh Koscheck.
Hey, P.U. That guy stinks, bud. Get out of here.
And we are just about out of time, but before we go, we'll give you our picks of the week, so why don't you get us started?
I'm riding high on Andre Fili. I expected his odds to maybe get a little worse than this, but the fact is, fighting Brazilian in Brazil, people aren't giving him as much respect as I am giving him. Maybe I'm giving him too much respect. But either way, my bank account is behind Andre Touchy Fili.
And I'm going to go with Francisco Trinaldo here. Trinaldo's fought the higher level of competition, and he's been back and forth. Obviously, both of these guys haven't really fought high levels of competition, but Trinaldo...
He fought Tebow and Chiesa.
He fought Chiesa, and he didn't look too bad in there.
Top 20 guys.
It was a tough situation for him. Regardless, Akbar Ariola, I think the bookies are giving him way too much credit for that win over Yves Edwards.
I agree.
It was Yves Edwards who... It was not the same guy. It was a shell of a guy. It was
might be a guy like you
one
said,
last chance.
1 foot out the door.
Yeah, 1 foot out the door. He's probably thinking in his mind, if I lose to this guy, and which he did
if I can't beat Akbar Ariola, I can't even beat Juan Manuel Puig.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to hang it up.
And Akbar Ariola lost to Juan Manuel Puig,
by
which,
knockout.
If you ever listened to this before, is the worst fighter, or actually not the worst fighter in the UFC anymore because he's already been cut. And as promised, we've got a parlay of the week this week, which Cody was nice enough to give to us. We've got Gilbert Burns, Andre Fili, and Trinaldo. And what was that pretty much come out to? Does that come out to close to even or?
Yeah, over even.
Over even?
Yeah.
Plus money on that.
Yeah, plus money. And that's the thing. You've got 3 favorites in here, but because Trinaldo is kind of he's the minus 155, it helps out the odds all around. These are 3 guys that I'm, confident in. Yeah. And for the plus money, I like it.
All right, I like it as well. So just wrap that up again. Cody's pick of the week is Fili. Mine's Trinaldo. And our parlay of the week is Burns, Fili, Trinaldo.
Put Burns on everything, people.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he loses, you can send the hate mail my way.
Exactly. But I would not anticipate that. I think Gilbert Burns really gets it done and shows off. You got to figure this guy was getting ready for Josh the Punk Thompson. He's going to be ready for I already forgot his name, Alex Oliveira here. But that's all the time.
Cowboy.
That's all the time that we have for now. Hope you enjoyed the show. So for Cody Saptic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.